Today I will tell you about a comic called Bloom County by Breckley Burford, or I don't think that's how his name is pronounced, but whatever, which ran from December 8th, 1980 until August 6th, 1989. The comic follows a wide cast of characters, with the focus in the first few strips being on Milo Bloom, a 10-year-old news reporter who lives in the Bloom County house run by his grandparents in Bloom County, a small town in middle America. His friend Cutter John, a wheelchair-bound veteran from Vietnam who's a fan of Star Trek. Steve Dallas, a womanizing, chain-smoking frat boy who constantly tries to come up with get-rich-quick schemes. Fun fact, both of these characters made their first appearance in Burford's previous comic, The Academy Waltz. Michael Binkley, a schoolmate of Milo who lives with his father, Tom Binkley. He is kind of like the Charlie Brown of the comic, being a very anxious and reflective. He has an anxiety closet where he thinks about things that worry him, and a pet penguin who later became the star of the strip, Opus, known for his large nose and addiction to the fish herring. He was separated from his mother during the Falklands War. He later became boarder at the Bloom House. He is naive and optimistic, which made him become the star of the comic. Then there's Bill the Cat, a bizarre parody of Garfield. Gross as he is, random, he rarely speaks besides ack and was legally dead at one point. Anyway, the comic is known for exploring political, cultural, and philosophical themes through these eccentric characters. A good example is when Bill the Cat had his brain replaced by Donald Trump's, and for the last few strips, we get jokes about Trump being a corrupt businessman. And there was a story where Bill was running as a presidential candidate. Not only had Trump's brain, but still, move over Simpsons. This comic predicted Donald Trump running for president years before the first episode of The Simpsons ever aired. And before making fun of the Orange Man was considered cool, which leads me to my next point, that this comic aged incredibly well, still is relevant even 32 years after it ended. I especially like this comic. Socialism! That's where the Democrats are taking us. And how does one spell socialism? L-I-B-E-R-A. Mail call. Your employment check, Medicare check, Medicaid check, Social Security check, welfare check, and your pharmacity check. Give me now that federal deficit. Speaking of its ending, as something I would like to talk about, in 1989, Burford decided to end the strip with Donald Trump still in the body of Bill the Cat, buying the comic and renaming it the Trump Strip, with the main cast all trying to find new jobs and throwing a goodbye party. Opus reunites with his mother and entering a magical doorway into a magical world known as Outland. Its ending being the kind of ending that ties up all the loose ends in a nice little bow, but in a bittersweet way, with Opus coming to terms with the comic coming to an end and moving forward to go on new adventures, which is a premature way of ending a comic strip that was mostly read by children. As George Harrison says, all things pass, and in an industry that's full of comics that overstay their welcome and become stale and repetitive. Over the years, it's cool to see a comic that had the dignity to end in a way that only something as bizarrely beautiful as Bloom County can. Because nothing lasts forever. With Bloom County coming to an end, there were at least 2 more comics to follow, where the ending left off. Outland, which ran from September 3rd, 1989 to March 26, 1995. And Opus, which ran from November 23rd, 2003 to November 2nd, 2008. Both Sunday-only strips, but only July 15th, 2005. Breckley Burford posted on Facebook that Boone County is coming back with a page with the caption, "A return after 25 years." He was like coming home. When asked if Trump's presidential campaign had anything to do with the return, he said, "This creator can't precisely deny that the chap you have mentioned had nothing to do with it at first. It was a Facebook-only comic, but is now hosted on Go Comics." Other cartoonists like Scott Kritz, creator of the comic Player vs. Player, and Aaron McGritter, creator of the Boondocks, have said that it has had an influence on them. And I would also say it inspires me artistically and with its humor, but it doesn't really say much coming from an amateur cartoonist like me. Anyway, it says a lot coming from these guys who are pros. But I first came across the comic at a Goodwill, as they had a bunch of those books that had a bunch of newspaper comics in it, and they were all for like a few bucks or less. So I bought the final book of Blue County and the Baby Blues Treasury, and I loved it ever since. Now there's a few kids books, an animated Christmas special from 1991 called A Wish for Wings at Work, which you should buy on DVD. Anyway, there are a lot of comics people say that they're favorites, from Peanuts, Calvin and Hobbes, to The Far Side, but when I think of my favorite of the funny pages, I think of a boy and a gross-looking cat that vaguely looks like Garfield and their adventures in a little town called Bloom County. At the end.
Not me, Dorothy.
There's nothing to be afraid of, Cowardly Lion. It's a nice surprise. Close your eyes.
All right.
Now open them. See?
Cure ads.
Curad comic strips. Ouchless bandages with pictures on them of you and me.
And me?
Yes, Scarecrow and you. Tin Woodman, too. See?
I like that one best.
And even the Wicked Witch of the West.
Oh, I could flip. Imagine me on a comic strip.
Curad, with a telepath that won't stick to the sore.
Me, ouchless.
Yes, now at the store. Wonderful comic strips with us on them.
Us from Oz.
Get yours right away.
Ouchless Curad comic strips bandages.
Today.
Another fine product made by Kendall.
We now return to the Transformers.
It was then, dear Santa Claus, in the midst of my most terrible conniption, that my salvation revealed itself to me. You, sir,